Hey, how's it going, guys? Mr. Boss for the win here, and in today's video, we're going to be looking at the past to hopefully predict the future of Grand Theft Auto 6. So in a video I did last week, we took a look at everything known so far, including the tiniest of details, rumors, leaks, and a whole lot more. Well, in today's video, we're going to be specifically focusing on direct quotes and references to GTA 6 from the creators of the game itself, Rockstar, and their co-founders, Dan and Sam Houser in particular, and even a little bit of Leslie Benzies, who used to be the president but left in 2016. And in some of these instances, they will reference Grand Theft Auto 6 directly. Sometimes they will just be talking about future projects, and I found this to be pretty exciting. Now, I will leave links to all of these articles in the description, so if you want to check them out for yourself, you can. This first article comes from The Guardian, where Dan Houser did an interview. And one of the questions he was asked was, Grand Theft Auto 5 is coming at the end of a console life cycle. Does the advance of technology interest you? Do you think, oh wow, what will GTA 6 look like on a PS4? And he says, of course we're interested, but no, not in terms of GTA, because we're always working on the current game. We look at the tech at a more practical level. What will be ready for which game that we're working on further down the line? We don't have another GTA in development. We don't work on 3 of these games at a time. That would be phenomenally depressing. So in terms of GTA, no. We get pitched by the hardware manufacturers on what they're planning to do, and our tech guys come up with ideas on how that could be used. Does this influence design decisions? Of course, but we're not sat there fantasizing about 10 years down the line. We're so busy with what we're doing right now. Now, I should note that this interview did come out in 2013, so that would obviously be 6 years ago. So I think it's safe to say that his ideas might have changed by now, but it's still interesting to think about. Now, he was also asked, you said that you would finish GTA when it stopped being interesting, but the games industry now depends heavily on its brands. Can you really imagine a future without it, referring to Grand Theft Auto? And he said, well, we don't need to worry about it just yet because we're not there. I don't think about this. I just do my little bits and pieces so that no one's shouting, where's your work? That's my day-to-day. Worrying about the next couple of games, helping to run the business, that's more than enough for me. So when it comes down to it, we wanted this game to be one where you'd go, I played San Andreas, I've played GTA 4, I liked them, but I know I'm going to be bored by this one, and then you put it in and say, wow. We wanted this game to be jaw-dropping in terms of its scope, in terms of its design ambition. We're always looking for that. So I know this might sound obvious, but I'm pretty sure that by GTA 6, Rockstar also wants our jaw to be on the ground in amazement and design ambition. So I think it's pretty clear that it's going to be a vast, huge improvement over Grand Theft Auto 5. Now, he was also asked, so there's no 10-year plan at Rockstar HQ for GTA, and he said this was the best game we could make at this point in time. We're not holding anything back for the future. If you said to me now, go and design another GTA, I'd be like, oh, what the F am I going to do next? But hopefully when the time comes, we will figure out what was good, what wasn't, and what could be improved with a bit of tech. The reason the game is still vibrant and exciting 11 years after it went into 3D is because we haven't done that. We've gone all out on every version to try and make it the absolute best game we could at the time. And yes, we've had to cut features because they couldn't be done or whatever it might be, but each time that we've been ambitious and pushed ourselves as hard as we could, of course, a part of me would love to not have to worry about GTA anymore, but another part of me goes, I'm excited to see what the guys have come up with and what we can all do when the time comes. So again, that interview right there should give you a lot of hope for the future of Grand Theft Auto, specifically GTA 6. Now moving on, Dan Houser also did another interview with Polygon where he talked about the future of Grand Theft Auto. Polygon asked, what could a future Grand Theft Auto entail? And they said Houser says very little is off the table. At the moment, it feels like Grand Theft Auto's DNA is contemporary-ish, America-ish, English-speaking-ish, because that's what it has been. But that doesn't necessarily limit it to those. That's just what we've done so far. The only thing about the franchise that is set in stone, he said, is that it has to be an open-world game. Everything else is discussed, he said. We might come back and say, let's not do it because it takes away from these things we like about the game, or it takes away those things. He goes on to say, we discuss anything. Many outlandish ideas have been discussed and have been rejected, or they could turn into another game, or they could inspire something else. And as far as the future goes, he says, I don't know what the future of anything is aside from the next few days and then October 1st, referring to the launch of Grand Theft Auto Online. At some point in the next weeks and months, Leslie Benzies, Aaron Garbut, and Sam Hauser and myself will have to actually think about what we're doing next and if we're going to do anything. You know, maybe we'll go, well, it's enough now, but hopefully we'll see. Now, from what we heard on that interview, it seems like whatever Rockstar is going to be planning next will probably take place in the present day time. And we can suspect that for a couple of reasons. Number one, that's what the last two Grand Theft Auto games have been about. Grand Theft Auto 4 taking place in present-day Liberty City, and Grand Theft Auto 5 taking place in present-day Los Santos. And the reason for that is that seems to be Sam Hauser's speciality. According to another interview done in 2008 on the website indianapublicmedia.org, they actually described Mr. Hauser as a British pop culture aficionado. So he seems like an expert at relying on modern day pop culture. And that's why GTA is filled with so many references to celebrities and crazy events that are happening all throughout the world. Now, building off of that, one of the more recent things that they've discussed is releasing Grand Theft Auto 6 during the current President of the United States terms. In an interview that Dan Hauser did with GQ, he said that he is thankful he is not releasing Grand Theft Auto 6 in the age of Trump, specifically stating it's really unclear what we would even do with it, let alone how upset people would get with whatever we did. Both intense liberal progression and intense conservatism are both very militant and very angry. It is scary, but it's also strange, and yet both of them seem occasionally to veer towards the absurd. It's hard to satirize for those reasons. Some of the stuff you see is straightforwardly beyond satire. It would be out of date within 2 minutes. Everything is changing so fast. So I'm almost positive that Dan Hauser is not specifically talking about there's no way he would release a Grand Theft Auto game while Donald Trump is still president of the United States, because technically he could still be president until 2024 if he was reelected for a second term. So would Rockstar really go about delaying a game that long? It seems unlikely. What I think he's talking about is the struggle of making a game in current times. With all the pop culture references, with all the politics going on, I guess it's even more intense than it was in 2008 and certainly in 2013 when GTA 5 came out. So it will be interesting to see how they ultimately handle that. Now, building off of that, just before the release of Grand Theft Auto Online, the Hausers did another interview with GameSpot where they talked about American culture and how they make it work so well in Grand Theft Auto. And this also ties into another question that has to do with the setting. They were asked, it's interesting seeing the environment where you guys work here in Edinburgh, Scotland, because so much of these games are about looking at American culture through the lens of the media. What's it like for you guys being this Scottish studio making all these games about America? And they said a lot of people here are fans of the American culture. As much as we love it, there's a lot of wackiness to it, especially California. Being the sarcastic British we are, we can have a laugh at it. The game, I think, is doing that. Not in a negative way, but funny stuff happens and we like to point it out. But yeah, it is weird. Edinburgh is probably the complete opposite in the world to California. And a follow-up to that, they were asked, is that what pulled you back to Los Santos? You felt like there was so much ground to explore with that setting. And they said it was the logical next place to go. Things just felt right. It was Sam's call, and I think he's got a good feel for what's coming up. With the world economy collapsing in 2008, one of the most affluent places in the world was California. So one of the most affected places in the world was going to be California. So the timing was just right. So I believe that's interesting for the location of Grand Theft Auto 6. It looks like the Hausers were focusing on the next logical place to go. And since they've also pretty much confirmed that Grand Theft Auto is pretty much going to stay in America, you sort of have to think, what's the logical next place to go? So since I've lived in America my whole life, I can tell you that, number one, there's plenty of cities that Rockstar could ultimately choose from that have a ton of interesting storylines, but how many of them would work for Grand Theft Auto? Would it be going back to a familiar place like Vice City, or would it be exploring somewhere completely different? I think their wording there is interesting, and it's also pretty cool how it looked like Sam Hauser was the one who said, yep, we're going back to Los Santos. I found that to be kind of neat. Now, probably one of the big questions regarding GTA 6 is when is it going to be coming out? We've never seen a Grand Theft Auto game take this long to release. And one of the reasons for that is probably the success of Grand Theft Auto Online. But even with all of that success, Take-Two Interactive CEO Strauss Zelnick explained that at some point in time, Grand Theft Auto Online is going to need to come to a rest. He was actually speaking at the Cohen and Company Technology, Media, and Telecom Conference, that's a mouthful, in 2016, when he specifically said not only was it not our intention that Grand Theft Auto Online was permanent, but it's important that it not be permanent. We have to rest the franchise at some point. Now, that quote happened in 2016, so obviously a lot has changed and 3 years has elapsed. So has his opinion changed on that with the amount of money that Grand Theft Auto Online and probably now Red Dead Online has ultimately brought in? Or does he still believe it's going to be the same? Now, as far as the release actually goes, Rockstar have sort of handled this in weird ways, depending on what game they're releasing. As far as their most recent title, Red Dead Redemption 2, we saw them tease a series of tweets over a couple of days where basically they just changed their icon and their background, and then they announced a couple of days later that Red Dead Redemption 2 was going to be arriving. However, for Grand Theft Auto 5, they did so in a little bit more of an interesting way. They were doing basically a question and answer on their Newswire page all the way back in 2011. And they were asked about Grand Theft Auto. You can see some of the questions right there. And they said, big shout out to all Grand Theft Auto fans worldwide who we know are anxious to hear about what's next for the franchise, but we don't have any news at this time. All we can say right now is we are focused on upcoming releases, which are Max Payne 3, as well as LA Noire for PC, the RDR Game of the Year Edition, and Max Payne for mobile devices. When and if we have anything to report regarding the Grand Theft Auto franchise, you know that we'll do so here at the Newswire or on our Twitter or our Facebook. And what's funny is just a couple of weeks later, on October 21st, 2011, Rockstar announced Grand Theft Auto 5. So they made that first little teaser, and then 3 weeks later, they announced the game. So I imagine that GTA 6 is probably going to be pretty similar. I mean, Rockstar basically generates its own hype machine just because they're so big at this point. Like, if they were to tweet out hashtag VI, I'm sure it would send the world crazy, and boom, that's their advertising right there. So I'm sure that it's going to be something similar, and that's what we've seen in the past. And the last thing we're going to be talking about today is just how ambitious Grand Theft Auto 6 is likely going to be. At the BAFTA Video Games Award back in 2017, the Hauser brothers and Leslie Benzies actually did an interview after receiving a reward, in which they talked about they try to be as ambitious as possible when creating Grand Theft Auto titles, and that their objective and their motto is to bite off more than they can chew. So by now, you guys know what Grand Theft Auto 5 is like. You also know the massive improvements they've made to Red Dead Redemption 2, and who knows what else is going to come out before GTA 6. So you can only imagine that it is going to be one of the biggest upgrades and improvements. And when they've gone on record saying that, they're usually going to stick by their guns and back it up. But anyways, that's all the information that I've got for you guys in this video today. We've analyzed the past, what Rockstar has gone on record and said, and how we can apply that to the future and what will likely happen to GTA 6. If you're interested in the video I did last week where we discussed everything we know so far regarding leaks, rumors, and reports that are known so far, I'll leave a link to that in the description so you can check it out for yourself. If you guys did go on to enjoy this video, though, a like rating would of course be awesome. And be sure to subscribe if you guys are new. You want to stay up to date on all the latest GTA and Red Dead Redemption 2 videos that I'm doing here on my channel. And be sure to ring that notification bell as well. Sometimes YouTube just doesn't work, and if you ring that bell, you'll always be guaranteed to be notified when new videos arrive. But of course, as always, guys, thank you all so much for watching. Take care, and I'll see you guys in the next video.